The Vanishing Room. Learn English with a short story. Level 5. Let me tell you a story. A story about a room that was never meant to be found. Ethan Collins was not your average guest. He walked into the Ashcroft Hotel with calm steps, a small backpack over his shoulder, and a quiet determination in his eyes. He wasn't there to relax. He wasn't there for the weekend. He was there for answers. For weeks, he had been reading about strange disappearances connected to this hotel. Not just ghost stories or legends, real people who checked in and were never seen again. And always the same detail. They were staying in room 313. But here's the thing. Room 313 doesn't exist. At least, not on any official map of the hotel. And that's exactly why Ethan came. He approached the front desk and gave a fake name. He had done his research. Everything needed to look normal, calm, unnoticed. The receptionist, a thin man in his late 50s, froze when he saw the room number assigned. His fingers hesitated on the keyboard. His voice dropped a little. Room 313, he said, almost whispering. That room is under maintenance. Ethan smiled politely. I don't mind. I just need a place to sleep. After a moment of silence, the man handed over an old brass key. As Ethan took it, the receptionist leaned in and said something strange, almost like a warning, almost like a riddle. If the door is there, don't open it twice. Ethan didn't respond. He just nodded, turned around, and headed to the elevator. He had no idea what was waiting for him on the third floor. But deep down, part of him hoped the stories were true. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and Ethan stepped into a hallway bathed in dim yellow light. The third floor felt still. The air was heavy, like the entire corridor hadn't moved in years. He walked past room 309, then 311, then suddenly 315. He stopped. There was no room 313, but something didn't feel right. The hallway stretched too far between doors. Too much space between 311 and 315. He ran his fingers along the wallpaper, soft, dusty, uneven. And then he saw it. Set back slightly from the others, partially hidden behind a floor lamp, was a door. A dark wooden door with a freshly polished brass number, 313. It was real. It was there, just like the legends said. Ethan's heart beat faster as he reached into his pocket and pulled out the old key. He inserted it slowly. The lock turned with a soft click. The door creaked open. Inside, the room was surprisingly clean. Antique furniture, a large bed with white sheets, heavy curtains, a faint smell of lavender, and something older, something sour beneath it, like dust trapped for decades. He closed the door behind him and scanned the space. Something about the room felt off. The angles of the walls didn't quite match. The corners felt too sharp, too narrow. The ceiling light flickered once, twice. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, pulled out his voice recorder, and pressed record. This is Ethan Collins. I'm inside room 313. So far, everything looks normal, but it doesn't feel normal. He placed the recorder on the nightstand and stood up to explore. The closet was empty. The drawers were clean. The mirror above the desk was strange. It reflected the room, but not quite correctly. When he leaned closer, his reflection lagged, just a fraction of a second behind. He stepped back, and then something caught his eye. The painting above the bed, an old oil landscape, was tilted. Not much, just enough to bother him. He reached up to straighten it. Behind the frame, he found a small hole in the wall, a peephole. Looking through it was complete darkness. Ethan took a deep breath, turned back to the recorder, and said softly, "There's something behind this room." The door suddenly clicked. Locked. From the inside. Ethan turned toward the door. He hadn't locked it. He walked over and tried the handle. It wouldn't budge. He turned it again. Nothing. The lock hadn't clicked. It had sealed. He stepped back slowly, keeping his eyes on the door. Then the lights flickered. Just once, but enough to throw shadows across the walls in strange, crawling shapes. He reached for his recorder. "The door just locked itself," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm going to stay calm, but something's not right." He glanced at the window. Thick curtains covered it. He pulled them open. Brick wall. No view. No street. Just old, cracked bricks pressed tightly against the glass, like the building had grown around it. He backed away. That's when the static started. Soft at first, barely noticeable, coming from the small TV in the corner. But the screen was off. The static wasn't visual, it was sound. A low buzz, growing louder, like a broken radio. And underneath that buzz, he heard it. Whispering. He spun around. No one was there. But the whispering continued. Not in his ears, but inside his head. Phrases he couldn't quite understand. Fragments. Like voices trapped in water. He pressed record again. "There's a sound in here, like voices. But I can't tell what they're saying." Suddenly, the TV turned on by itself. The screen showed him. Ethan, sitting on the bed. But not now. It was him, older, tired, pale, wearing the same clothes. Same room. Same lighting. He stared at the screen. The older version of himself was staring back. And then the screen glitched, and the image flickered to black. Ethan stood frozen. Silence. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks. Not at the door. Inside the closet. Ethan turned slowly toward the closet. The knocks didn't repeat. But something had changed. The room was colder now. The air thicker. He picked up his recorder. 3 knocks, coming from the closet. "I'm going to open it." He crossed the room, each step feeling heavier than the last. His hand trembled as he reached for the closet handle. He opened it fast, ready for anything. But it was empty, completely empty. Except there was something on the floor. A pair of women's shoes, coated in a layer of dust. Ethan bent down. Inside one of the shoes was a hotel room key. Room 313. Different style. Older design. Decades old. He stood up, heart racing, and looked around the room. That's when he noticed something even stranger. The painting above the bed was gone. The mirror above the desk, cracked. The lamp by the chair, missing. The room was changing, piece by piece. He rushed to the door, trying the handle again, still locked. Desperate, he began banging. "Hey, is anyone out there? Hello?" No answer. He looked down the peephole in the wall again. At first, darkness, then a light, and a face. Not his. It stared back at him. Pale, hollow eyes. Lips moving, but no sound. He fell back, breath shallow. "I need to get out," he whispered into the recorder. "I need to get out now." He opened the nightstand drawer looking for anything that could help. Inside, he found a small leather notebook. Its pages were filled with names, dates, and final messages. Dozens of them, all written by different hands, all mentioning the same thing. "I stayed in room 313. Please tell my family." One message stopped him cold. It was written in fresh ink, dated just 3 days ago. "Don't trust the mirrors. Don't trust the door. The room feeds on memory. I think I'm forgetting who I am. My name is Ethan Collins." Ethan stared at the note. His own name, his own handwriting, but he hadn't written it. Had he? His mind raced. He flipped through more pages in the notebook. The next entry was also signed by Ethan Collins, but the date was from last year. The next one, even older, different handwritings, same name. He slammed the notebook shut, heart pounding. "What is this place?" he whispered. He needed answers. Now, he forced the closet open wider and pushed against the back wall. It gave slightly loose. Hollow. Behind it, a narrow passage. Dust fell from the ceiling as he crawled through, the darkness closing in around him. The air smelled of mildew and something older. Forgotten. The passage led to a small, sealed storage room. Inside, old furniture was stacked haphazardly. Torn wallpaper, burnt carpet, and a box. He opened it slowly. Inside were dozens of hotel keys. Room 313. Each one different. Different eras. Different designs. Each one real. In the corner of the room, an old hotel employee uniform hung on a rusted hook. Faded. Stained. And inside the jacket pocket, he found a photograph. A black and white image. A couple smiling. Behind them, room 313, clearly marked. On the back of the photo, a handwritten note. "We sealed the room, but it never stayed shut. If you're reading this, you've already entered. Don't let it remember you." Just then, he heard footsteps behind the wall. Slow, deliberate. He ducked low, holding his breath. Through a crack in the wood, he saw someone walking down the hallway. A hotel staff member. Old uniform. Thin, bony frame. Moving like a shadow. The figure paused in front of the wall, where room 313 should be. But there was no door. just wallpaper. And then the wall opened. The figure stepped inside. Ethan backed away quickly, heart racing. He had to get out. But how? That's when he remembered something from the journal. A ritual. A way out. Simple, but dangerous. He had to return to room 313 before sunrise. Ethan crawled back through the narrow passage, the journal pressed tight to his chest. The air was colder now, thicker. As he stepped back into room 313, he realized it wasn't the same room anymore. The wallpaper had peeled further. The mirror was shattered. The bed was gone. The space felt hungry. He opened the journal again, flipping to the page marked with a torn ribbon. The exit ritual before sunrise. Lights on. Do not break eye contact with the reflection. Do not speak. Do not turn around. Ethan swallowed hard. He set up his phone, turned on the flashlight, and pointed it toward the cracked mirror. The screen of his recorder was blinking, low battery. He pressed record anyway. This is Ethan Collins. I'm attempting the exit ritual. If this recording is found, I was here. I was real. He stood in front of the mirror. His reflection looked back, tired, pale, but intact. The room pulsed around him. The whispering returned, louder now, calling his name, promising answers, offering memories. He stared into his own eyes, unblinking. Behind him, the shadows shifted. He didn't turn. He didn't flinch. His vision blurred, his breathing shallow. The lights flickered, once, twice, then held steady. A crack formed beneath the mirror. A line of golden light. The journal said, "Step through." Without hesitation, Ethan reached out. His fingers touched the light, and the mirror shattered outward, revealing a narrow hallway of blinding white. He stepped forward. Silence. His phone fell to the ground behind him, the recorder still blinking. Then it stopped. The next morning, the cleaning staff found room 313 exactly as it always was. Empty, untouched, no trace of Ethan Collins. But later that day, a new guest checked in. A woman traveling alone. At the front desk, she asked for something quiet, something private. The receptionist hesitated, then handed her a key. Brass. Worn. Room 313.